My daughter put a boy in the hospital, and I've never ever been prouder. My daughter was in chemistry lab when the basketball star knocked over their experiment accidentally while showing off to his teammates. The chemicals ruined her partner's competition notes. 3 months of research destroyed in seconds. She'd endured weeks of his harassment, including stolen research and damaged equipment, so she grabbed a beaker of blue indicator solution and dumped it over his head without a second thought. Nobody knew he was severely allergic to one of the compounds in the solution. His face swelled instantly, and he collapsed gasping for air on the lab floor. The teacher quickly administered his emergency EpiPen and called an ambulance, while other students backed away in shock. My daughter called me from the principal's office, terrified about what she'd done and convinced she'd be expelled before the end of her senior year. I rushed to school to meet with his parents and the superintendent. The basketball coach showed phone footage thinking it would help their case. Instead, it clearly captured the player deliberately ruining the experiment, laughing at their distress, and shoving her lab partner when he tried to protect their work. You could see the exact moment my daughter decided she'd had enough of his behavior. His father's demands for expulsion died as he watched his son's behavior. My daughter got detention, but he lost his spot on the team. As we left, her lab partner asked her to co-author their project. Sometimes justice wears safety goggles.
What's the most heartbreaking announcement your school ever made? For 3 years, our entire school rallied around Emma, a freshman diagnosed with terminal cancer. We held fundraisers, shaved our heads in solidarity, and filled her hospital room with cards when she was too weak for visitors. Fight like Emma became our school motto. Teachers wore purple ribbons daily. Students organized midnight prayer vigils. Our basketball team dedicated their season to her, making it to state championships with her name on their jerseys. We raised over $36,000 through bake sales, charity auctions, and a 5K run. Even local businesses displayed Emma Strong signs in their windows. Monday morning, the intercom crackled during first period. Emergency assembly, now. We rushed to the gym. Emma's mother stood with the principal at center court, tear-streaked face, clutching a folder. Strange. She was supposed to be at the hospital with Emma, who'd entered final stages last week. The principal took the microphone, hands trembling. Police officers entered through the side doors. A detective stepped forward, taking the microphone from our principal. I have disturbing news. Emma Taylor and her mother have been arrested. There was no cancer. The money we raised paid for their new car, designer clothes, and trips to Disney World. The sound of 300 Fight Like Emma bracelets being ripped off at once filled the gym.
My coworkers always pressured me to join their expensive lunch outings, but my revenge was served colder than their overpriced sushi. Every Friday, they'd go to this fancy sushi place where lunch costs $50 per person. They pressure everyone to join, saying it was for team bonding. I always said no because I bring my lunch to save money. I was saving up for my mom's medical bills, but I never told them that. Last week, they started making fun of me, calling me cheap and antisocial. The final straw was when they started a group chat to mock my homemade lunches, sharing photos and laughing. That's when I hatched my plan. I agreed to join them this Friday, but I had something up my sleeve. The day before, I talked to my boss about our lunch break policy. Turns out we're only allowed 30 minutes for lunch. Their fancy sushi adventures always took 90 minutes. I mentioned how they shared photos mocking other employees' lunches. The boss's face turned serious. Her daughter had been bullied for the same thing. So on Friday, while they were all ordering expensive rolls and fancy drinks, I got my food first and headed back to the office right on time. They didn't even notice I left, too busy taking photos for Instagram. 2 hours later, they all rushed back in looking panicked. The boss was waiting. She gave them all written warnings for extended breaks and toxic behavior. Now they eat at their desks, and nobody calls me cheap anymore. They even started bringing lunch from home. Sometimes the best revenge is simply following the rules and letting karma do the rest.
I thought my 6-year-old daughter was obsessed with eating people until I discovered the truth that made me laugh for days. I was folding laundry when I found her tablet open to some disturbing searches: how to cook humans, where to find fresh humans, and best humans to eat. My heart nearly stopped. As I scrolled, more searches appeared. Soft humans, crunchy humans, sweet humans with sprinkles, how to make humans taste better, and can I keep humans in the freezer? I started panicking, my hands shaking. Should I call a child psychologist? Was my sweet little girl who still slept with her stuffed unicorn secretly planning something horrifying? I spent the day watching her play, trying to figure out how to approach this situation. That evening, I nervously took her to the grocery store, hoping the casual environment would help me bring it up. My daughter skipped along beside me, humming her favorite cartoon song, while I rehearsed different ways to start this conversation. In the baking aisle, she suddenly squealed with excitement. "Daddy, look! It's the humans I've been searching for everywhere!" She pointed straight at the gingerbread human display. Rows of cookie-cutting shapes, decorating kits, and pre-made gingerbread humans in festive boxes. She'd been looking up gingerbread cookie recipes for her school bake sale this whole time. I hugged her tight and bought her the biggest cookie decorating kit, plus extra sprinkles and icing. Now whenever she announces she's hungry for humans, I just smile and remind myself to check the full context before panicking.
My daughter's teacher laughed when I asked her to stop flirting with my son, so I got her fired. I never thought I'd have to protect my kids from their own teacher, but here we are. It started when my son turned 16. Ms. Roberts, his new English teacher, would always keep him after class to discuss his work. At first, I didn't think much of it. Then my daughter, who was in her class too, started noticing things. "Mom, she touches his arm a lot," she told me one day, "and she gives him these looks that make everyone uncomfortable." My stomach dropped. I watched my son become quieter, more withdrawn. I scheduled a meeting with Ms. Roberts. When I brought up my concerns, she laughed it off. "Oh, you're one of those paranoid moms," she said, rolling her eyes. "Your son's nearly an adult." That's when I pulled out my phone. My daughter had been recording everything: the lingering touches, the inappropriate comments, the way Ms. Roberts would accidentally brush against him. The smile fell from her face. I went straight to the principal. He tried to minimize it, called it a misunderstanding, so I posted the videos online. Within hours, other students came forward with similar stories. The school board called an emergency meeting. Ms. Roberts was fired the next day. My son's back to his old self now, but sometimes I catch myself wondering how many other teachers get away with this, because sometimes being a paranoid mom means being the only one willing to protect your kids. My daughter was in terrible pain after her accident, but this nurse's response made my blood boil. I'll never forget how she smirked while my child suffered. She had broken both legs in a car crash, and the doctors said the next 48 hours would be crucial. The pain medicine they gave her only only lasted 4 hours, and when it wore off, she would cry so hard she could barely breathe. Her whole body would shake, and it broke my heart watching her suffer. I started setting alarms 30 minutes before each dose. The night nurse would always say, "I'll get to it," but wouldn't move from her phone. My daughter would squeeze my hand so tight, tears rolling down her face, begging for help. I felt so helpless watching the clock tick by. One night, the medicine was an hour late. I found the nurse laughing in the break room, scrolling through social media. When I reminded her about the medicine, she rolled her eyes and said, "She's young, she can handle it." She didn't even look up from her phone. I lost it. I told her, "That's my 16-year-old daughter sobbing in pain while you're watching TikToks." I marched straight to the supervisor's office at 3 a.m., shaking with anger. The supervisor checked the records and found out the nurse had been forgetting doses for other patients too. She was fired on the spot. Our new nurse was amazing. She never made my daughter wait a single minute for her medicine, and even brought her favorite ice cream to help cheer her up. Sometimes I still think about how many other patients suffered because of that nurse's laziness. Being in pain is terrible, but being ignored when you're in pain is even worse.